Hi beautiful souls, it's Tan here today talking about how you can use Neptune for the purpose of self-transformation through reprogramming your subconscious and creating a paradigm shift. Now if you're not really sure or familiar what that actually means, you're creating your paradigm shift or reprogramming your subconscious, I would recommend that you watch my introduction video to how to use astrology to reprogram your subconscious first. So I'm going to leave a link to that up there and in the description box below. So that's kind of the introduction video for this whole series where I go through each of the outer planets in astrology and talking about how each of them, can be helping you with transformation. So yeah, watch that first and then you can come back and watch this video. And this video is an introduction to... There's a baby crying outside. So this video is this video is going to be an introduction to Neptune and how Neptune helps with transformation in general. And after this video, I'm going to be making, Neptune in aspect to other planets, Neptune in the houses, things like that. It's a Neptune signature in your natal chart. So yeah, this is the introduction video. Before that, I hope I'm making sense. Sometimes I just go in circles, guys. That's why I write scripts and things. I write a lot before I actually talk to you, so I don't forget stuff and don't go around in circles. Mercury in the 12th house, go around in circles. So, because Neptune actually rules Pisces, so it is quite important for us to first have an understanding of what the Pisces archetype is all about. So if I were to summarize the Pisces archetype in one word, it would be timelessness. That pretty much just, covers the general state of the Pisces archetype. But let's go in a little bit deeper and talk a little bit about timelessness. So, according to this man right here, this book is by Maurice Fernandez. This is an amazing book on Neptune, the 12th house, and Pisces. I would highly recommend that you can get on Amazon, and it goes through like all the Pisces signatures, so all the Neptune signatures basically. So it's got like Capricorn Pisces signatures, Neptune in the 10th house, Scorpio Pisces signature, Neptune in the 8th house, Neptune aspect to Pluto, things like that. This is where I'm getting all the knowledge from, and then I'm sharing this with you and putting in my insights into and experiences into when I tell you about this stuff. So yeah, according to Maurice Fernandez, timelessness is a dimension that is actually parallel to the time and space dimension that we live in right now, this 3D world. Timelessness is considered to be absolute truth compared to relative truth, which is in this time and space dimension. In time and space dimension, we have time and we have spatial awareness. That's, we can touch things. We, watch the sun come up, we watch the sun go down, things like that. And relative truth, for example, in this time and space dimension would be something like, for example, Thailand is hotter than Sweden. On average. The absolute truth of timelessness would be that these two geographical locations are of connected and interrelated ecosystems, and even made of the same types of substances and molecules. In other words, relative truth may change according to man-made laws. The fact that one place is hotter than another place is possible through the invention of a thermometer and through a collective understanding of what it actually means to be hot, what constitutes hot and what constitutes cold, and what can be associated with hot and cold. Absolute truth, on the other hand, is based on universal law and it never changes. The fact that the geographical location of Thailand and Sweden are of the same similar substances and built along the same ecosystems, interrelated ecosystems, can't be changed. So the Pisces archetype is about understanding this state of timelessness and absolute truth. It is said that before we came into this earth, in our body, in this time and space dimension, our soul and our energy was in a timeless dimension and we were whole. The moment of birth is when we became fragmented because we have to transport ourselves into this time and space dimension. So Therefore, the purpose of being in this time and space dimension is for us to learn about relative and absolute truth so that we can become whole again from our fragmented pieces. We can join them together and become whole, so that we can assimilate ourselves back one fragment at a time. So both timelessness and time and space dimension coexist together and one cannot exist without the other. And this is an important point. One cannot exist without the other. So what Pisces in our chart does and what Neptune in our chart does is it makes us want to abandon this time and space dimension for timelessness. And this is precisely why Neptune brings illusion, and nothing is really clear, and it's all just fogginess with Neptune. Neptune makes us think that if we're in timelessness, we can be happy, but it's not possible. Because timelessness and time and space dimension, these two dimensions must coexist. We must be in both of them. We must understand both of them if we are to survive in this physical body. Both are equally important, but Neptune deludes us with the fantasy that timelessness is the only place that we can be happy. Because although timelessness brings peace, but what is peace without uncertainty? Time and space dimension. Timelessness brings transcendence, but what is transcendence without attachment? Time and space dimension. Timelessness brings an acceptance of all, but what is acceptance without refusal? Time and space dimension. I think you get the idea here. So the way Neptune does this, how it deludes us and how we begin to evolve as we get out of this delusion, if we get out of the delusion, goes in 7 phases according to Maurice Fernandez, which I kind of want to tell you a little bit about these 7 phases. Not everyone will experience all 7 of them, and they don't necessarily go in order. It just depends on personal experience. But I feel like, personally, I believe that we do experience these 7 phases. If we are to, I think most of us, at some point in our lives, maybe later on when we get older, we do kind of come out of this Neptune illusion, So I kind of feel like we do experience all 7 of them. And even if I think that if with awareness, we can experience all 7 phases, and we should. Because when we do, then that's when we've fully transformed and we've fully reprogrammed our subconscious. So phase 1 is called the Innocence in the Miracle of Life, according to this book. It is about living life in timelessness, right? It's the initial phase, it's the pure Piscean Neptune energy, which is living in timelessness. It's before we are birthed into the womb. It has no recognition of danger. It is naive and a bit ignorant, with the expectation that the universe will provide us with all of our needs and there is no struggle to survive. Phase 2 is called Losing Innocence. It is when we are birthed into the womb, entering space and time dimension, not literally, but it might be psychologically, it might be emotionally, it might be physically. We begin to experience neglect or dysfunction and chaos if we don't exert the effort in order to maintain and manage life. We also begin to feel like we are victims, so there's a victimization process that goes in. We begin to feel like everyone is the predator. There's a predator-prey situation in the real world. We begin to feel that we have to now be responsible for life. There's an existential crisis that might happen. Do we really have to do all these things in order to survive? Kind of a question. So the only option left is to trust the process. So phase 3 is what is called strengthening immunity. We begin to learn and have a healthy respect for caution and protection. So we're not so naive anymore. We begin the process of self-empowerment. We realize that our hopes and ideas come from a yearning for paradise lost. We realize that the predator and prey situation is needed so that we can evolve, and we begin to evolve. we begin to think about what we can do to improve our existence in this space and time dimension, and the Neptune clarity is starting to come in, but not fully yet. So as we begin to evolve, the next phase is called the phase of the public function, where we begin to be aware of the collective consciousness. We begin to participate in sharing resources, whether that be, physical resources or knowledge or anything that we have. We wanted to be able to share this with the world, and we realized that nothing can really be privately owned. We have to share it. How can we think about how we can impersonally offer our services. We think about our professional orientation. We're not just dreaming the dream, but we are becoming the dream. But there's also the danger, okay? Remember, we're not fully, clear yet. We're in the process of being clear from the Neptune illusion. So there can be a little bit of an illusion of grandeur, where we might think that fame, the need for fame begins to override our true purpose, our goals, the cause that we are, doing and participating in the world. We may think that we are chosen by destiny and we are more special than other people. The next stage is called defying fear, where we begin to really step into our authentic selves. We have a need for authenticity and truth above security and survival. We want to be able to defy a fear of the unknown, so we might become more adventurous. We begin to step out of our comfort zones. We sail into the open seas without a promise of the outcome. We want to set our spirit free at this stage. The lesson here is that when we stop fearing the truth, when we live in truth, we can really find freedom. Meaning that when we live in timelessness and time and space dimension together, that's when we're really free. We're not free if we're just in timelessness only. We'll be free when we have a balance of both. The next stage is called humbling the ego. This is when we're becoming more spiritually evolved, and despite all the achievements in our lives, we realize that nothing really lasts. We allow the ego to confront its own mortality, so the ego dies. Not completely die, but it humbles down a little bit. We can never really eradicate our ego. Remember that. We can kind of humble it a little bit. We are ready to leave emptiness behind to face the void of the unknown. In a sense that we don't own anything, not our success, land, or children, so it does not matter that we leave things behind and we go forward. We don't own that thing that we're leaving behind, and will not own or claim the thing that we're going to be facing in the future anyways. So the last phase is called the phase of spiritual development. We begin to experience a spiritual awakening, and we are opened to a greater calling. Through, all this evolution, we become more sensitive to the higher frequencies, and we begin to listen to them. We become more equipped to help alleviate the sufferings of people in the world and resolve any problems, that are in the world. There's a danger of spiritual masochism, where you are extremely removing yourself from this physical world, from this material world, through things like, we've seen spiritual people who starve their bodies, don't wear any clothes. The danger here is because when we are doing this, we are still being attached to being spiritual. And by being attached to something, the ego is still involved, because attachment needs the ego. We are forming an attachment for the need for transcendence. So we need to let go of this attachment. We need to not abandon relative truth, right, for absolute truth. Like I said, the balance between both of them. And finally, we begin to accept our birth in this time and space dimension, and we stop trying to fight life. We seize the illusionment of ideals and hope, but we begin to gain clarity of the truth, and we can understand the truth, relative and absolute. So I know this might all sound a little bit too abstract, so let me put into a real life example of how somebody can go through these phases in their real in the real world. So for example, let's think about like maybe a Pisces Libra signature. Pisces in the 7th, Neptune in the 7th house, Neptune aspect to Venus, Venus in the 12th house, something like that. These are all connected signatures of the Pisces Libra signature, right? So let's say that this person has that signature. So the most kind of basic example would be, let's say, a teenage 16 years old girl, right? She falls in love, for example. So in the first phase would be this girl who's very innocent, right? So she's not aware of the consequences of falling in love too fast. She does not know what it feels, what heartbreak feels like. So she has no boundaries and she jumps into relationships. So in the second phase, she begins to lose the innocence, right? So maybe she loses the relationship or something goes wrong within the relationship and causing her to lose innocence. She'll begin to think and question, what is the point of relationships, for example? What is the point of falling in love, all right, so in the next phase, phase 3, strengthening immunity, she might begin to think about what can she do next time when she falls in love, how she can be more cautious and protect herself. And then in phase 4 of the public function, she might begin to understand that everybody goes through similar things in their lives. Everyone fails in relationships and has heartbreak, and she might be, and become an advisor for her friends and things like that. In the 5th phase of defying fear, she may begin to understand the truth, relative truth of the world, that, besides from loving others, we also need to love ourselves and we need to set boundaries. So she might begin to develop self-love, and she might begin to defy fear by being more adventurous. She might go travel. She might do things on her own and try to meet new people and see what she can do that she's never done for herself in terms of self-love before. And in the 6th phase of humbling the ego, she begins to learn that eventually, this self-love, this adventure, it's not gonna last forever. Also, my relationships with that person or any kind of relationships don't last forever. Her ego begins to become more humble when she realizes that nothing really lasts. Even, being alone doesn't last, being in a relationship doesn't last. So she might begin to feel more ready to love again, but without the ego involved. So in the last phase of spiritual development, she might eventually, find balance and realize the balance of the fact that, she needs to put in effort to maintain relationships, but at the same time, she can't give everything away. She creates boundaries, but she doesn't put up a wall necessarily. So in this spiritual phase, she might also begin to understand the spiritual connection that is needed, to make with somebody in order for the bond to last. But at the same time, she doesn't give too much of herself away and she doesn't compromise all her values, things like that. So the spiritual phase is going to be finally gain balance. So that's just an example. And that's basically what we'll be doing when we go through each of the Neptune placements and Neptune signatures in your natal chart. So the way Neptune's signature works, so let's talk a little bit about that. So the way the Neptune signature works is you would look at, for example, Neptune in the houses, all right? Neptune in the signs, Neptune in aspect to planets, and yes. So let me give you an example of this girl. Let's say she has the Pisces Libra signature. She could have Neptune in the 7th house. 7th house rules Libra. She could have Neptune in Libra, okay? She could have Neptune aspect to Venus, because Venus rules Libra. She could have Venus in the 12th house. 12th house is ruled by Neptune. She could have Venus in Pisces, okay? So these would be the signature. So when you're going through this series, keep in mind that you might not just have one Neptune signature. I don't think anybody would have one Neptune signature. So you're likely to have a few of them, okay? Because let's say you have Neptune aspect to the Sun and Neptune aspect to Venus, you would be looking at a video for Neptune for Pisces Libra signature and Pisces Leo signature. I hope that makes sense, guys. Alright, I feel like that was like a lot of information, and yeah. So, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more astrology content. And I will see you in the next video with our Neptune signature series. Bye!